lab. We are back again with another configuration lab. If you pay attention to what you see right now, this is two layers that we will be dealing with. So we have an access layer and a distribution layer. On the previous video, we have touched upon the VLAN. We have dealt with configuring DHCP. We have configured the DNS, and actually we haven't touched upon DNS, so this is going to be our first topic. And then also the inter-VLAN routing. We have touched upon the device security. Okay, so this is the lab that is pre-designed. I have already designed this so that it's gonna be easy for us to just start. Okay, so what do you see on this lab? All I can say, if we start from the right hand side, we have this particular VLAN, which is VLAN 40. This is going to be the network ID that we will be using on this particular VLAN 40. So this includes the IT department and also the server room. So the devices that you will be looking at on the right hand side is the DNS server, the DHCP server, and the management PC. Okay, so as we move to the left hand side, we have the marketing department. We will also associate all of these devices with the VLAN 30, if you still remember how to create VLAN. So we will be doing the same thing, and then we will be giving this network ID. And then let's move to the left hand side furthermore. This is HR department. We will be associating all of these devices to VLAN 20. This is their network ID. And then on this last VLAN, which is VLAN 10, on the left hand side, this is finance department. We will be doing the same thing that we will be doing on the rest of the VLAN. Okay, this is their network ID that they will be using, which is 192.168.10.0/27. Okay, so this is the subnet masking that the subnetting that we have done here to break down the larger network into smaller networks according to the VLAN that we have. Okay, so what we're planning to do, we are planning to have at least less than 30 devices per department. This is as a result of trying to enhance the security, and also just to make sure that we have different or multiple broadcasting domain on the network. Okay, so what you see here is just a distribution layer, or it's an aggregation layer. All right, so it connects the access layer to the distribution layer. So what you see here, we have these layer 2 switches. They are connecting directly to the distribution layer switches, multi-layer switches. These are the layer 3 switches, these are the layer 2 switches. So each and every layer 2 switch connect to the distribution switch. Okay, so as you can see, the fastnet 01, it is directly connected to the gigabit 1/0/1. Okay, on the multi-layer switch on the left hand side. And the other interface or the other port, there is fastnet 0/11. It goes directly to multi-layer switch 2 on the right hand side. Again, on the HR department, the same thing applies. We have this switch, layer 2 switch. It directly connects to multi-layer switch on the left hand side, and the other cables go straight to multi-layer switch on the right hand side. These cables, as you can see, they are having broken lines. They are trunk links, and then all of other standard through cable, they are just standard through cables. Okay, so they are access cable, right? So let's just switch on this multi-layer switch. We will have to take the power supply and put it in so that the switch is gonna come on. Right, let's give it some time. It's gonna come on. There we go, it's coming on. All right, so what we're trying to do first, we will try to create VLANs. Let me just do this so that we will be moving with one configuration at a time. So let me just do this. Okay, let me just, in fact, let me just let me use a cycle, small cycle. These dots will represent that this is the caption that we will be dealing with at that time. So what we're trying to do now, we're trying to create the VLANs on these departments. All right, let's start from the left hand side. Everybody knows how to create VLANs based on the video that we have released. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do, again, we need to navigate to the CLI command line interface. By default, the switch need to be enabled by typing the command enable, and this is our privilege mode. We need to further type in config terminal. Now that we are in the global config mode, all we need to do is to create these VLANs. Okay, so how do we do that? We just type in VLAN 10 and then we give it a name. Name is finance. Okay, and then we exit. Right, what about this one here? Let's do the same thing. Enable config terminal VLAN 20. What department is this? It is HR, and then we exit. Okay, what about this one here? This is marketing. Let's do the same thing. Enable config terminal and then VLAN 30. Let's give it a name. It's marketing. All right, let's further move to the last one. This is the last VLAN. Enable config terminal VLAN 40. Name of this VLAN is IT and server room. Server room. Exit. Okay, what we did with these commands, we have created the VLANs on the layer 2 switches, but we haven't associated the interfaces that are available on the switches with those respective VLANs. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to select all of these interfaces and associate them with the VLAN that we have created. Okay, how do we do that? All we have to do is we have to select the interface range of those interfaces. The first one is 0, 1 up to, let's see, this one up to 9, and then this is 10 and 11, this is 11 and 12, this is 8 and 7. So we're not going to apply the same configuration. The configuration here, because we have different number of the interfaces, it's not going to be same as here. Okay, now let's deal with this one. The range will start from /1 to 9. Okay, so what I will do here, I'll type in the command switch port mode access, and then I'll type the command switch port access VLAN 10. You will notice the status of this interface will just restart. Okay, as you can see, the status of these interfaces. They're turning orange, which means they are there is a change. So the interfaces, they are assigning themselves to the VLAN, which is VLAN 10. Okay, remember by default all of the interfaces on the switch, they belong to VLAN 1. Now that we have created VLAN 10, and then we have also associated the range of the interfaces from 0/1 up to 0/9, so which means that all of these interfaces, they belong to VLAN 10. All right, and then the rest of the interfaces from 12 up to 24, if we check by typing the command to show VLANs, we will pay attention and notice that all of the rest of the devices, the rest of the, I'm on the wrong switch if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. This is finance. Let me see if this is finance. Yes, this is finance. Okay, correct. So if you look and pay attention, from 10 up to 24, and then also include this gigabit Ethernet link, they also belong to the default VLAN, which is VLAN 1. However, we're still gonna change this into trunks links. That's why I said they would be starting from F012 up to 24, and then we included these gig links into a default as well. Okay, and then this is what we manually created, which is the finance department. This is the VLAN ID, and then this is active. These are the interfaces that we just associated with this VLAN ID. All right, now let's move on to another department, which is HR departments. Okay, let's do the same thing. Remember, here we haven't configured the trunk links. We will come back for it. So let's come here on the HR department. Let's do the same thing. All I have to do is to select the number of range. So I'll just range from first 0/1 up to this is gonna be up to 10 this time around. Okay, and then all I have to do is switch port mode, access, and then I would have to say switch port access VLAN 20, because this is the VLAN 20. Right, exit, do right. Okay, I'm not gonna verify this. Let's move on to the other department. So let's do the same thing. Interface range fastnet 0/1 up to 6. Switch port mode access, switch port mode, switch port access, VLAN 30, do right. Okay, let's move on to this department, IT and the server room. Let's run the same command. Interface range, how many devices? 8 devices, so it's gonna be fast 01 up to it's fast 0/1 up to 8. Okay, now switch port mode, this is an access. Okay, switch port mode access VLAN 40. Okay, do right. We have successfully configured our VLANs. We have associated all of these interfaces, the access interfaces, into our respective VLANs. All we have to do now is configure these trunk links. Okay, that links access layer to the distribution layers. Okay, let's do that now. I'll start by this one. Okay, config terminal. So before I do that, maybe let me change the host name of this device so that we'll be able to see which switch are we configuring. So let me just call this a finance switch. Okay, now interface range 10, interface range FA0/10 up to 11. So what I'm saying is here, I want these two links to be part of switch port mode trunk. I want them to be trunk links. As you can see, the status went down and then it came up, right? So now these devices, they are trunk links. Why we having this as trunk links? Because they are capable of encapsulating multiple VLANs at once. Okay, so let's do let's do the same thing on this switch as well. Let's define the host name. This host name is just gonna be human resource, or let me just say HR_switch. Okay, as you can see, the host name has changed. Now all we have to do is select the interface range. This is not case sensitive, so I can just say starting from FA0/11 up to 12. Switch port mode trunk. Okay, as you can see, the status went down on this fastnet 011 and also on fastnet 012, and then it came up and also it came up. Okay, now let's save the configuration, do copy run start or do write. Okay, now let's move on to marketing switch. Let's do the same thing, do exit host name. The host name is marketing switch, and then let's say interface range FA0/7 up to 8. Switch port mode trunk. Same thing applies, we're just saving the configuration. Now one more VLAN configuration that we'll be doing on the IT and server room. So we will be configuring the host name again. Let's just call it IT-SVR server room. Okay, and then let's just say interface ranging from FA0. This is where I'm looking at, so it's gonna be 09 up to 10. Okay, let's go back. This should be 9 up to 10, and then same thing applies. This is a trunk link, so we just wanna say switch port mode trunk, do right. Okay, what now? Now that we have successfully configured our VLANs on the access layer level, what we need to do is we also need to advertise them here. Okay, on these switches, whatever VLANs that we have created in here, we need to do the same thing here. Okay, the spinning tree is playing its crucial role by blocking those loops. So let's do this config terminal. Let's give it a host name again. This is multi-layer switch _switch 1, and then The other one is enable config terminal host name multilayer underscore switch 2. Right, so maybe before we advertise this VLAN, let's advertise them under inter-VLAN routing, so we'll do everything at once. Let's go to configuring the DHCP server. This is what we will be using the most. We'll be using all of these IP addresses. Before I confuse you, each and every VLAN, there is a default gateway that associates with it. So for instance, the default gateway for this network, I would like it to be 192.168.10.1. Let me copy this. And then the default gateway of this network, I would like it to be .33. And then the default gateway of here should be 65. And then also the default gateway of here should be 97. Okay. It could be any IP address within the usable IP address of that network ID. Remember, the block size of this network ID is 30, so we're expecting that the default gateway could be any number between those 30 IP addresses that are usable on that network ID. For instance, this is the network ID of 10.0, this is the network ID of 10.32. So I can use 33, 34, 35, or 36, or 37, or 38 as my default gateway, but this is what I chose. Okay, now let's give it some pretty color so that we will be able to see. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this again here. Let's do this again in here. Let's do this again in here. Right. Now, as you can see, these are gonna be my default gateway that I'll be using on the DHCP server, because I need to tell the DHCP server, all right, about this default gateway that I'll be using for my VLANs. All right. Now, remember the first thing that we do, we don't wanna have the DHCP server to have a dynamic IP address. So we need to give it a static IP address, the IP address that won't change. All right. So all we have to do is, remember, sometimes the server, they have like 2 network interface cards. So you can configure something called NIC teaming. In this case, let's just use this this option that is available to us. So let's just say 192.168.10. Remember the last octet of this IP address, we have to fall under this network ID of .96. So which means our IP address can be maybe 100. Okay, let's make it 100. Right. And then another thing that we must pay attention to is the subnet mask. All right, the subnet mask has changed. It won't be this subnet mask. It's gonna be slightly different, and then it's gonna be 224. All right, and then let's just make sure that we bring it here, 255.255.255.224. all right, let's do this. Let's put it here, and then let me see if I can copy this so that everyone will be able to see. I'm just gonna let me just place it maybe somewhere here. Okay, let me just place it somewhere here. All right. This is the subnet mask of this network ID. Okay. If you don't know how this came about, you can just always go into research based on the subnetting. All right. So however, I'll be releasing another video based on that. So for now, let's just use this subnet mask. Okay. So let's come again here. So what is gonna be our default gateway? Remember the default gateway, we said we're gonna use 97, so it's gonna be 192.168.10.97. Okay, and then what is the IP address that we're willing to give our DNS server? Let's maybe just give it 192.168.10.98. all right, and then let's come to the services. Remember, this is the DHCP service that we're dealing with. We ignore all of these available service to us, so let's go to this protocol here. Okay, all we need to do, remember we said we have to enable this, and then we can then start changing. All right, so the first pool that we're trying to create is for our department, but you can start anyhow in any order. It just this is where I prefer to start. I will start from our right hand side to the left hand side. So in this case, my default gateway was this IP address of 97. So it's 192.168.10.97, and then the DNS that I said I was going to use 192.168.10.98. all right, automatically at the start of leasing have automatically generated. However, I want to specify exactly that I want them to start to get the IP address from 101, because I have 100 as my DHCP server. Okay, so let me just save this. These have been saved. I would like to add another one. Okay, I would like to add another one, sorry. I would like to add another one, which is gonna be finance. And then for finance, I would like to use this default gateway, and then the DNS server is not gonna change. It's the same DNS server that we use. And then I want the IP address to start leasing from 2, and then I will just edit. Okay, on the list. As you can see, it's have been successfully added on the list. I will continue to add this one, which is HR. I can just come in here, give it any name, human resource, and then my default gateway for this VLAN start from 33, right? Let's confirm that by moving this. It goes for 33, so this is 33, and I would like it to start leasing the IP address from 34. all right, and then it has been added successfully. All right, now let's add another one. The last one is marketing. Okay, we know that the default gateway for this VLAN is 65. all right, let's do that now. Let's add 65, and we're gonna leave the DNS server the same for every devices on the network. So now let's give the start IP, which is gonna be 60, let's say 66, right? And then we can add. All right, now we have successfully advertised our default gateway to the DHCP server. Now all of these client devices, they will be able to look for a DHCP server. However, we still have some missing configuration that we need to be configuring on the distribution layer, multi-layer switches. These are the layer 2 switches. So let's move on to DNS. I'm just gonna remove this. Okay, now let's move on to a DNS server. So if you click on the DNS server, you will find that the same way that we have been trying to assign the IP address on the DHCP server, this is okay. I think I might have made a mistake here. I'm just gonna change the name only. I'm just gonna let me just start by saying S and then DNS, and then let's go back to that one and say this is actually DHCP. All right, DHCP. Dynamic host configuration protocol. Okay, and then we have a DNS here. We will be doing the same thing, 192.168.10, but remember that we said we're willing to give it .98, and then the subnet mask doesn't change, still the same, 192.168.10, and then this is our default gateway for this VLAN, which is 97. All right, now let's go to the DNS server. We're gonna point this address to ourselves. So this is 192.168.10.98. okay, let's go under services and then let's go to DNS. Of course, here we still have to enable the service itself. These are the A records that we will be doing here today. There are multiple records that you can configure on the DNS, as you can see, but let's call this one Wi-Fi Tech Lab. Okay, and then let's give it an IP address, 192.168.10.98, and then we edit. After we edit, then we can save it. Okay, a record has been successfully created, which means if I ping Wi-Fi Tech Lab, or if I run the command nslookup Wi-Fi Tech Lab, I'll be able to see this IP address. All right, so we've done with configuring the DNS server for now. Let's move on to inter-VLAN routing. This is a new topic because the last VLAN configuration that the lab that we did, we were just communicating devices within single domains. Okay, so now we're trying to communicate devices on multiple domains. Let's start by the switch on the left hand side, because the configuration that will apply on the left hand side is the same configuration on the right hand side. This is a redundant switch, so that when this switch is not operational, this one will continue to function properly. As you can see, we have trunk link here that goes to the switch, and then we have trunk link that goes to the switch, which means even if this interface was blocked by the spanning tree protocol, this link can still forward traffic to that switch, and then that switch can forward traffic to the internet. All right, let's do this. Let's configure this switch right here. We already created the name, so now we are on a global config mode. Let me show you the total number of the interfaces here. Do show IP interface brief. Okay, as you can see, we have these trunk links that are connected. We have these trunk links that are connected to this multi-layer switch. We have trunk 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes from these access layer switches, which are layer 2 switches, yes. And then the rest of the interfaces on that switch, they are down. Okay, they are down. Okay, remember our main objective in here is to configure the inter-VLAN routing, something that will enable us to communicate VLANs towards each other, right? They need to be able to communicate. Something that is here must be able to ping something that is here. Something that is here must be able to ping something that is here. Okay, what's the configuration that we'll be doing? First thing first, let's type in the command interface VLAN. Okay, interface, or I can just say int VLAN, right? And then I will need to specify the VLAN ID that I'm willing to configure. So in this case, I'll be starting with interface VLAN 10, right? What am I willing to do on this VLAN 10? I'm willing to specify the default gateway, and then I would like to also specify the IP helper address. All right, those two are what I'm willing to specify in here. All right, so what I'll do is I will just say IP helper IP address. Okay, let me just say IP helper address, and then I will point it to the IP address of the DHCP, right? So in this case it is 98, right? And then I would like to add IP address of 192.168.1.1. okay, this is incomplete because we need to specify also what is the subnet mask of this particular network. Okay, it's actually 224. all right, now I can just say no shot, but this is already up. And then I will also have to do the same thing to VLAN 20, which is the following department, and then I will have to use IP helper, the same IP address for that DHCP server. So, and then the IP address of this default gateway would be the different one, which is 192.168.10. I'm sure you can see my mistake, so I will go up there and change it, and then it's .33 255.255.255.224. right, now let's exit and go back to interVLAN 10, and then I'll say no IP at 192.168.1.1 255.255.255.224, and then I will just say IP at 192.168.10.10. 1.255.255.255.224 and then do right. Okay, now let's move on to interVLAN 30. So we're willing to specify IP helper address as well, 192.168.10.98. Oh shit, 98 is actually the IP address of the DNS. Okay, so we need to modify that as well. So it's actually 100. It's actually 100. IP at 192.168.10.65. Let's double check this. It's actually 65. Yes. While we're here, let's double check the IP address of the DHCP server. It's actually 100, not 98. 98 is our DNS server. All right. So what do we do now? Simple. So let's just say 65 and then 255.255.255.224. Do right. Now let's go back to the interface VLAN 10. Let's say no IP helper address of 192.168.10.98. However, we want it to be 100. Do right. Let's move on to interVLAN 20 and then let's run the same command. No IP helper of that. However, we want the IP helper of 100. Okay, do right. Let's go to VLAN 10. I see the mistake again. We need to retype this command, IP helper 192.168.10.100. Okay, do right. Now let's go to interVLAN 30. So interVLAN 30, yes, no IP helper address 192.168 .10.98. However, we want it to be 100, and then let's remove that no, and then IP add. Okay, we have already added 65. Now let's move on to interface VLAN 40. IP helper address is going to be 192.168.10.100, and then we need to specify the default gateway of this VLAN, which is 192.168.10.97. Let's double check that. Indeed, it is 97. Now let's just put the subnet mask of this network, which is 255.255.224. Do right. Interface VLAN routing have been successfully configured, but we still have one job to do. For instance, if we doesn't do this, let me show you what's going to happen. Suppose I'm coming to this PC, I'm trying to obtain an IP address from the server. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to get the APIPA. Okay. Why? Because this device have no idea of the VLAN that is happening here. So I need to allow the VLANs on this interface. How do I do that? I need to specify all of the VLANs here by typing. I can call them one by one, even though it takes longer. As you can see, the interface just went up. Now let's go to villain 20 and do the same thing, and then let's go to villain 30 and do the same thing. Let's go to villain 40 and do the same thing. Do right. Okay, we have then successfully configured the interface villain routing completely on the switch, so we just need to do the same thing on the other end, so that one of the switch will be a root bridge, and then the other one will be secondary. Okay, now let's come here and do the same thing. Config terminal in. We're just gonna say we're just gonna say intervillain 10 and then IP helper address 192.168.10.1 sorry 100 IP address is gonna be 192.168.10.1 255.255.255.224. I'm just gonna copy this all over and over and over because it's actually quite similar. Let's do this. 30, this is 40. Difference is that it's only 97, and then here is 65, and then here it's 33, and then here it's just 1. Okay, and then I can just say villain 10 exit, villain 20 exit, villain 30 exit, villain 40 exit, do right. This is the configuration that we're willing to copy and paste on this switch. Okay, as you can see, these are the configuration that we have just used, and then the interfaces, they are up. So I can say we have finally configured our intervillain routing, and the whole purpose of this lab was to make sure that all of these protocols, they are configured. Now let's see what's going to happen in all of these devices. Okay, let's see if they will be able. Oh, as you can see, the DHCP request has been successful on that device. As you can see, this is the IP address that it has obtained, which is 2.2, and this is the subnet mask that it has obtained and the default gateway of that, and then also that 192.168.10.98. right. Now what about this one over here? All of them. Okay, as you can see, this one got .3, and then let's move on to the other one. This one is gonna get 4. This is .4. The list goes on and on and on and on. This one got that, and then let's go to this one over here. This one got .8. Okay, all right. Okay, now all right, let's check the last one on that villain. Okay, this was the last one. It got dot 14. What we expect when we move to VLAN 20, we want the lease IP address to start from 34. Let's check on our DHCP server if we have successfully configured that accordingly. So we expecting them to start from 34. All right, and let's come in here and see if this was the router. I was gonna run a command IP DHCP binding. Okay, let's see. As you can see, this is what we got. This is our DNS server and this is our default gateway, which is quite different from the default gateway on the VLAN 10. All right, so what does this mean? It means if this device is sending out something, it's gonna send it to that default gateway. So if we are flooding a packet to this switch will actually don't flood it to other domains except this domain. Okay, this VLAN domain. All right, let's move on to this one. This is 35. Okay, this is 37. I'm just gonna skip all of these ones and move to the last one. Okay, this is 38. All right, now let's move on to this marketing VLAN. What we expect here is to see the IP address start leasing from 66 upward. Let's go to PC54. Okay, this is 66. Okay, this is 68. Okay, this is 70. Okay, this is 71. Let's move to the last one. Okay, this is 73. This VLAN idea, or it's basically based on trying to enhance the network security. All right, so whatever communication that is happening here, it doesn't leave the domain, it stays in here. Okay, only when it requires to break out to the internet, that's only when it leaves. Okay, now let's go to this one here. This one we expect it to start leasing from 101. As you can see, so it start list from 102. Okay, which means this is what we configured. And then let's move on to the other one. This is 103. And then this is 104. And then this is actually 105. All right, now let's do a ping. All right, I want to ping this IP address 10.14 from this device. Ping 192.168.10.14. As you can see, we are getting a response. So we have sent those ICMP echo requests and then we have received echo replies. All right, so this PC is reachable from this domain, which is VLAN 10 broadcasting domain. Okay, Suppose I want to ping my default gateway, which is 192 ping 192.168.10.1. I'll be able to ping myself the default gateway, and then let me try to ping 192.168.10.100. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna be getting a timeout based on that. Let's see if I try to ping the DNS server as well. Ping 192.168.10.98. I'm also not gonna be able to ping the DNS server. Alright, so what I will do is I will use dynamic or static routing protocol on the upcoming videos to further demonstrate how to actually ping from a different domain to another different domain. Okay, because the packet now needs to know the route to the destination of a different domain on the route. Alright, so let's go back to this PC and see if we can ping .34 as well. From this PC, I want to try to ping .34. Okay, ping 192.168.10.34. Unfortunately, also I won't be able to ping it because on this video we only talks about these topics. However, we gonna be coming to demonstrate how to configure something called dynamic routing protocol and static routing protocol, and also default routing protocol and floating routing protocol. Alright, so the device from here can ping any device on its particular domain, and the device that is in here can ping any IP address on its domain. Alright, I hope this video was so informative to you.